Welcome, one and all. This is the second part of the Cable No More class brought to you by the Orland Park Public Library. If you didn't join us a couple weeks ago, this is the second part. So if you at one point want to see other stuff before this that I don't talk to about that long or not in depth, I'd watch that first before watching this again later on when this gets re-uploaded, but here we are. So strictly in this one, I'll be reiterating tidbits that I talked about in the first part. At the same time, I'll be going more in depth, and then I'll give a little bit more time to question and answer at the end of the entire presentation and more hands-on, so everybody gets a general idea of what is going on and what everything means, works, and does. So first, we'll be touching a part of what I talked about first in the first part, just to give a general idea for anybody who is watching this for the first time, didn't watch the first part. What does streaming and ISPs and streaming devices look like? Well, first you need an ISP and hardware to stream. So what that means is that, once again, the internet service provider is whomever gives you your internet service, whether it be AT&T or Xfinity, for example. And the hardware itself is stuff like routers, modems, gateways, and stuff like that. Second, you need to sign up for a online streaming service and or get an antenna, but we're not going to focus on the antenna part. We're talking about the streaming service portion. So what streaming services are is an alternative. Instead of having cable and spending hundreds of dollars on just a cable package on top of phone and internet, you just have internet, and then you have specific streaming platforms that have specific types of content and different mediums and different plans and offers. And finally, you need to get a content streamer or have a smart TV. So what that means is that you can have a Roku, Apple TV, Google TV, or anything like that as far as an external device to actually stream that stuff to a TV if it's not a smart TV. And what a smart TV is that it acts like all those other devices without having the external device itself. So it would be its own section where it has its own set of apps, just like the other things do. So that's kind of like a little bit of a starter course of what we're kind of talking about today. And then now in depth and more talking points, tonight we will talk about how streaming is different. We're going to talk about the flexibility, downloading versus streaming, and on-demand versus live, seeing those pros and cons and different comparisons. And we're talking about the streaming services themselves, whether it be what can I live without, whether it be shows, content, types of things like that. And we're talking about the different streaming services themselves, whether it be stuff like Netflix, Hulu, Peacock, HBO Max, Disney Plus, etc. So there's a lot more I'll get into later. We're talking about the premium and standard memberships and the pros and cons of the streaming platforms, and talk about the streaming devices, whether it be Roku's, Apple TVs, Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV, etc., like I briefly discussed a bit ago. So first we'll talk about the flexibility. You can watch on your laptop, tablet, or smartphone, but to truly watch anywhere, you'll need to make sure you have a data plan that covers the amount of streaming you want to do, and when you're not connected to Wi-Fi. So what that means is that you can stream anywhere you want as long as you're connected to a wireless access point, whether it be a restaurant or home business, anything like that, or you have to use your mobile data on your smartphone plan or a hotspot or something like that you can use wirelessly to where you can stream anywhere, so you're not locked to the confines of your house as far as watching stuff on cable and stuff like that. Now we're going to be talking about the comparison versus downloading and streaming. So basically this difference is that downloading is you're going to a specific site or spot or something like that where you take a file and you actually download the file and save it locally on a hard drive, USB, disk, DVD, anything like that. And then you actually just own it, opposed to streaming where it's not local like downloading is, and you are actually taking content on a server somewhere provided by one of those platforms, and you're actually streaming the content to whatever device without having to download anything manually. It's just you sign in and you just watch stuff. So that's the difference as far as downloading and streaming. And now we're going to talk about the differences of on-demand and live TV. So with live TV, you have the option of, well, you have a list of channels from all the major platforms. You have stuff that's set to come on. You'll have everything that comes on each channel, but you have specific things, specific times. You have the option to record and stuff like that, but then you have the roadblock of commercials and stuff like that, where you basically are bending in the will of whatever the cable company is providing on those specific stations. So you're basically limited in the confines of whatever comes on. So you have a specific movie or TV show you want to watch, you have to wait for it to come on or record it, and it's just a big mess. So the on-demand option is a thing that actually started with cable and then branched on to streaming platforms. And what they actually use is that they have a menu of movies, TV shows, anything like that. And then you have the option of watching anything you want, given of what they own. And you don't have to worry about commercials, or you have very minimal ads, or you don't have to worry about it coming on. It's just a much more streamlined medium. You may actually have a streaming service and you don't even know it, like Amazon Prime Video. So a little bit about this before I go more into it in a little bit, that a lot of people do pay for Amazon Prime for faster shipping and a bunch of other stuff, whether it be music and stuff like that on Amazon. But then some people actually don't know that you actually have the option of having Prime Video included with that, and you have a library of stuff at your disposal already without even knowing it. And now we're talking about the streaming services a little bit. So you got stuff like Apple TV Plus, Amazon Prime Video, and HBO Max, Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus, and a plethora of other ones. But those are the big players in that kind of game. So I'll go in depth later on as far as the actual websites themselves and the different plans that they offer. Now we'll talk about the pros and cons of streaming services. So a big pro is that you do save a lot of money on contracts that are month to month. So like I talked about in the first part, and to reiterate, when you sign up for a lot of these cable companies and subscriptions, you are stuck on a basic, you're sign up for a contract, you have to either sign up for a year, 2 years. You start off with the low price, and then after that first year or so, they just ramp up the price. But with the streaming services, you're doing a month-to-month basis where you have the option to have a free trial for a week. You want to try it out, watch specific stuff, see if it's for you, and then you can just completely cancel the service, and then you don't have to worry about having an early exiters fee. You don't have to worry about having cable box fees, taxes, and stuff like that on top of what you're already paying. And another pro is that different services have different libraries and channel lineups. So what that means is that a bit of those platforms that I was talking about before have specific movies and shows that are linked to it, whether it be licensing rights or streaming rights, because a lot of times people think that a company owns something and they don't own the streaming rights to it, so then they don't have it on their own platform. Like, for instance, that though HBO Max is owned by Time Warner and they own the Harry Potter movies as far as like the production and the distribution for like DVDs, Blu-rays, and so on, that they actually don't have the exclusive streaming rights for it. So that's why the movie keeps flip-flopping between Peacock and HBO Max, because they signed a multi-year deal. So you kind of have that thing to it. So, and also each one of those platforms too also have their own original stuff, not only stuff that's actually licensed. So it's stuff that's made in-house, that are either funded by the company or not. And you have that option of having that exclusivity of that movie or of that show. And you have that kind of differentiating each one of those platforms to set them each apart from each other. So another benefit too is that you can watch anywhere, like I described before, on your television, tablet, laptop, smartphone. So once again, you have that luxury of being able to take whatever you want on the go. And a lot of these streaming platforms too have the option of downloading stuff while you're online and then watch that offline. Say you're on a car trip, you don't have a hotspot or any kind of internet access, you can watch that stuff locally on your phone, tablet, laptop without having to stream it. So that's a big benefit. Con is that the newest releases aren't free. Some services charge an extra fee to watch new releases, i.e. Disney Plus. So what that means is that a lot of the times that, since we're in this day and age with the current state of things, that some platforms like Disney Plus have to find their own way, since they're not releasing stuff in mass in theaters, that they actually charge an extra fee on top of the subscription itself to watch something the first day or week or a couple months it drops. So like, for instance, Raya the Sky Dragon from Disney came out about a couple weeks or so ago. It's in theaters and it's on Disney Plus at the same time. But if you have Disney Plus and you want to watch it before it becomes free on June 4th, you actually have to pay a $30 premium to watch it day one. So you have to keep that in mind as far as having that extra charge. And another con too is that you have to have a good internet connection to be able to consistently stream stuff with either no buffering or pauses or quality drops. So what that means is that at the least you need to have 15 megabits per second to be able to comfortably stream. I've run into instances where you can actually have lower than 50, like say 25 to 60 megabits per second, as far as the type of speed you're running with. So you can actually stream stuff at a consistent quality level without frame drops or buffering, pausing. You're going from like 4K to 1080p, 720 to 480, and it constantly drops based on the bandwidth you have. So that's the thing you have to keep in mind. Next, we'll talk about the network channels. So some of your favorite networks offer some content for free based on a subscription you already have, or there are websites like I'll talk to in the next point, like Cartoon Network, A&E, USA, Sci-Fi, where they have their own websites. And what it is that you can watch content that they provide on those websites. But the thing is, you're confined with the browser bandwidth. So what that means is that if the cache gets full, which is the data that the websites actually store to run these shows and movies in browser, whether it be Chrome, stuff like that, that it needs to clear that stuff out. And then with these things offers that you would go to those sites, you would go and choose a movie or TV show, and then what it would do is it would ask you, hey, do you have AT&T, Uverse, Xfinity? Do you have any of these different cable companies as an account? And they do offer you to log in with those credentials that you have for your account for the internet, cable, stuff like that. And you can just watch that stuff for free. So it varies depending on where you go. And the next point too is that stuff like HBO Max and Peacock come with your cable subscription, but are also offer standalone services like costing $14.99 a month for HBO Max and $4.99 for Peacock. So with that is that sometimes when you go on those specific sites, when you're signing up for those internet services, that they'll tell you, hey, if you pay for this plan, you have HBO Max and Peacock or Peacock included with that price point. But the thing of it is, if you think about it, the price that you're paying for a standalone, and if you're paying that high price for the high plan, you're basically paying for that price included with the internet plan or cable plan or something like that. So it's kind of like a trade-off per se. And a subscription can give you all the access to on-demand as well as live streaming of premieres. So like I said before, where you have the option of having those options of streaming, and then you actually have those things kind of mitigated to the internet bill you have, and it's kind of like the same price and kind of that thing. So keep that in mind. Next, we're going to talk about the streaming devices to stream said content more in depth. So what about smart TVs? So like I said before a little bit, and I'll go in more depth right now, smart TVs are the built-in functions of having a streaming box like a Roku, Apple TV, Chromecast, without having to have those boxes. And they have their own dedicated apps based on the manufacturer of that smart TV. So then a benefit of that is not having the extra box, and then it's just the TV, that's it. You can install apps like Hulu, YouTube TV, Roku. You have your Peacock, HBO Max, stuff like that. So that's an option. And then if you don't have a smart TV and you just have a regular flat screen or anything like that, you have the option of having stuff like Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV, Chromecast, Roku, that can take something that isn't a smart device and turn it smart with having the options of apps like streaming services, games, and stuff like that. So in each one of them have their own different price points and the different UI as far as the way they look, the way they function, their libraries, what they offer, and stuff like that. So that's a big talking point, but that's pretty much the basis of having those smart devices. And also now we have to talk about resolutions, which I touched upon before, where you have stuff like 720p, 1080p, 4K, and you're asking, what does that mean? In layman's terms, what those numbers mean is that it's the pixel density of the monitor or TV as far as like the quality that you have of your movie or TV show, and as far as how it stretches, the definition of things on screen, whether it be humans, objects, environments, stuff like that. So the higher you go up, the more detail you get and the more color contrasts and different options you get. So we have 720p, which is the lower end of streaming services, which a lot of time it's what they kind of it's like a flip flop in between resolution, where as 1080p is full HD, 720p is the stepping stone to that. It's like having HD, but then not. And with that, you have to have 25 to 50 megabits per second of an internet connection to stream that quality consistently. And it also carries over to 1080p, but then you have the extra threshold of, depending on what you're watching and what platform you're watching it on, you have a 50 to 100 megabit per second internet connection requirement, or you can sometimes go lower depending on what the streaming platform actually offers as far as bandwidth and the way that their servers get the content to your devices. And also, like I said before, where this is the mid-range of streaming services. So 1080p is basically the standard as far as where everything is, where it's not like far reaching like something like 4K is right now, which will eventually become the norm, where it's like where everything should kind of be as far as definition, opposed to having DVD quality like, say, movies, TV shows, and stuff like that. And then now we have 4K, which is the newest format, and it needs something around the 150 plus megas per second internet connection speed as the high end of streaming services. So not all streaming services have the option of 4K. Sometimes they'll have options of specific movies are in 4K, or they have upscaling, and what upscaling is that it'll take something like 1080p and then just up the quality to make it pseudo 4K, but not actually be 4K, because 4K has a big thing with HDR, which is high dynamic range, which means that you have your environments at your greens, your blues, and your red contrasts in movies, and some of that pops, and then specific definitions of scenes and dark scenes look a lot better with that quality bump up. So you have that option of having that highest point. And off the top of my head, before I get into it, that sometimes too, that specific things as far as platforms have the extra plans as far as pricing concerned, and they vary in prices as far as you'll see later on about what each one of those kind of offer. And like I said in the last part, and in this part again, you can do this and you can make the jump, and the library too has what you need if you want to try it out or you want to make the jump. We have stuff like Roku, like I mentioned before, as a streaming device. We have hotspots that if you say want to try out HBO Max on the go and then you don't have internet in your car already, or are in a restaurant or your home, you take that with you and it's a mobile beacon to your device to give it internet. So, and also with smart home speakers and assistants too, where a lot of times devices will have the option of using those devices to auto load one of those streaming platforms. So that's a big help as far as getting your feet wet into making this big jump and this big contrasting jump. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to show each website as far as what I discussed already and show what they kind of look like and what each one offers and the pricing and go more in depth with each one of them. So first would be Peacock, which is owned by NBC Universal. And what this is that it has all of your NBC stuff. It has live sports, which is a big thing too, is that each one of these have weather options for stuff like that. It has stuff like sports, live sports, like NFL, MLB, and stuff like that, where doing this doesn't necessarily mean you're getting rid of it. You're paying an extra fee and you're losing out all these features. So what Peacock offers is that you can create a free account with Peacock, but then you're limited to either the first or second season of specific shows or specific movies. And then the other movies and the other seasons are locked behind the initial $5 paywall. And then you'd basically sign up, make an email, and then you can start watching stuff for free out the get-go just to try it out. And then you can also pay the $4.99 bump up to get all of those shows unlocked and all of those movies unlocked to watch the complete collection of stuff. And you get the 7-day free trial. So if you choose that you don't want that or don't like that, you can actually just cancel right away, no early exodus fee, and you can just pay that flat fee every just single month. And then there's Peacock Premium Plus, which has everything in premium without the ads. And also they have a disclaimer where due to streaming rights, small amount of program will still contain ads. So with Peacock Premium, you do have ads specifically, unless you use ad blockers and browsers and stuff like that. So it offers that bump up if you're paying the extra $4 or $5, but you're still getting specific ads and specific shows and stuff that they don't own themselves, depending on what those companies are telling these platforms to kind of do. And like right here too, like I talked about before, that you have the options of, if you already have Xfinity, you're already paying an internet bill up to a certain enchilada, they give you Peacock Premium for free. And then it's a part of the fee already that you're already paying and you don't even know it. And then also you have the annual plan switch right here. So you can basically pay bi-monthly or just pay one flat $50 fee, $100 fee, and then that's it. It's like one charge and that's it, either by month or annually. And next is Hulu. Hulu is one of the big first pioneers of streaming platforms, along with Netflix. And the subscription plans is that you have the $5.99 a month or the $60 per year. You have, and that's with ads. And then you have Hulu with no ads for $11.99 per month, Hulu plus live TV, and Hulu with no ads plus live TV for those different price points. And with Hulu, unlike some other platforms I'll get into later on, or with Peacock, that Hulu has its own original content, but it doesn't have anything IP related, whether it be, you think about stuff like Friends or Saved by the Bell that are owned by big companies like Fox, NBC, and stuff like that, where they have that exclusiveness to them, has the edge over the other ones, and you don't have to worry about the shows or movies being removed and then you just can't watch them anymore, or you have to wait 2 months to watch them next time. So what you have to do with that is that with Hulu, it's like a third party like Netflix is, where it has its own original content, but then it doesn't own a lot of these more popular movies and TV shows. So you have the risk of losing it entirely or losing it for a couple months, and then they might re-add it just to gauge interest. And then also with Hulu, you have premium add-ons with HBO Max, Cinemax, Showtime, and Stars. So what that is that you have these packages and they offer different movies and TV shows, a part of them, to basically improve upon the Hulu umbrella. And like with Peacock and with this too, is that you have the option of doing the on-demand way as far as picking your stuff and just watching it, or there's a live TV option where you can actually have it emulate what live TV feels like as far as randomized shows, networks, without paying that cable bill. So you kind of have that option. And then next is Paramount Plus, which is owned by Viacom or CBS. So with this, you get your exclusive shows like your Nickelodeon stuff. You have some sports with CBS. You have weather. You have game shows. You have exclusive stuff like that. And that's for $5.99 per month. So, and also it has other options like Comedy Central, MTV, BET. So that has its own exclusive shows and also has its own originals. You have your sports, you have your news. So you have to worry about, if you get rid of cable or you don't have an antenna, you have the option of still having those local channel feeling things like weather and sports without having to pay an extra fee on top of like a cable fee or anything like that, just for one specific thing. You have a bunch of things instead. And next is Disney Plus, which is self-explanatory, which anything Disney, Pixar, Marvel, Star Wars, National Geographic, and you pay $7.99 per month or $7.99 per year. So then you have all your exclusive Disney stuff and its own original stuff too. And like right here, like I said before, with Raya and the Last Dragon, that you have a premium fee of that $30 if you want to watch it right now, since it's still new and Disney's still trying to get that theater box office draw without having to lose any money. And you'd be paying that $30 on top of the $7.99 that you're paying per month just to watch it early, or you'd have to wait till June 4th to watch it completely free with your subscription like you would do anything else on the platform. So you have these different options. You have your stuff like Pixar, Simpsons, and stuff like that. So that's always a great option. And like I discussed at the beginning, you have Amazon Prime Video, which a lot of people don't know that they have, even though that they're already paying for Amazon Prime. And that's basically a $12.99 per month fee, and you get faster shipment options. You have Amazon Music, you have Prime Video, and you have specific things as far as originals, and you have your own library. So you kind of have that option as a kind of alternative. You have HBO Max, and like right here where you pay $15 per month and cancel anytime, like I said before. And Godzilla vs. Kong just came out. And it's also the cool thing about HBO Max, other than Disney Plus, is that since Warner Brothers owns all this stuff, they have the option of showing it simultaneously in theaters as well as on here, and you don't have to worry about paying an extra fee to watch it early. And there's still stuff coming down the pipeline, and you have all of your other stuff like South Park and Sopranos and The Nanny and stuff like that. You can also, I'll show you on each one that you can stream it on gaming consoles, tablets, computers, TVs, and so on. Then next is Netflix. So then when you see the plans right here, the thing I don't like about Netflix is that, one, it's not its own exclusive thing. It doesn't own a bunch of its these IP related things like Friends and stuff like that, where sometimes they can just completely just throw off one of the things that they have on there. You don't see it for a couple months or never again. And it also has these plans where you pay an $8.99 fee and you're stuck at 480p. So I think that's completely irrational, because if you have something like Peacock or Disney Plus, you're paying less than that and you're getting everything in HD or even 4K options. And you have the standard, which is $13.99, you get stuck at 1080p. And then you have premium, which is $17.99, and you have 4K plus HDR. So this is one of those only exceptions where you have the option of upgrading, but you're stuck at specific qualities and you're paying more in the long run for it. So you kind of have a trade-off. And then Apple TV Plus has its own stuff. It's $4.99 a month. And if you buy Apple device, you get a free year on them. And also if you get Apple One, you can get a 1 month free trial. It has its own exclusive stuff as well as its own IP related things. You have your options of what you can watch it on. And now I'll talk about the cable viewing options, like for instance, like Sling, where you pay $25 for your first month, and then they upcharge you kind of like cable, but then you kind of have the cable experience. You have different packages. You'll have the blue or the orange. You can buy both, where you have specific channels on one or the other. And it pretty much, it simulates cable without paying the extra fee for a cable, like the $100+ fee. And no contracts too is the biggest thing from that. So you have those other options too. If you still want that feel without paying the extra thing, if you're kind of overwhelmed, you don't want to have to deal with the on-demand kind of style. So that's basically it. So I'll leave this portion for a bit for any questions as far as anything I talked about, didn't talk about, or anything like that. So feel free in the chat to ask any questions that something I didn't go in depth with, or anything that I didn't touch upon or clarify or anything like that. But that's basically the gist of it, where you have now basically an alternative. You have the resources, and you can actually completely get rid of that high cable bill, all these taxes, all these box fees, and these contracts where you're locked in, you're stuck with whatever they give you, and these early exeter fees and stuff like that. So this is basically the future as far as something that is a very much viable way of digesting content. So I'll leave this open for a little bit longer just so anybody can ask any type of question. But yeah, if anybody has any questions that if they don't have time or they forget something in the chat, that you can email me at this email at jmccall@orlandproductlibrary.org or call the library at 708-428-5171 to ask a specific question or anything like that. So you have those other options to you. But I'll leave it open for about another minute or two if anybody else has any other questions. But yeah, I mean, this is just a very innovative option as far as completely just cutting all those fees and then just having what you want. You don't have to worry about getting a bunch of stuff that you don't want. You're paying extra for it. So that's always a big benefit. But yeah, I'm Joe, and I'm IT2 at the Orland Park Public Library, and this has been Cable No More Part 2. Thank you for watching.